Welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in to another new episode. This week, my guest is Miss Courtney Prete. She is the founder of the Her Outdoor Journey organization and one of the hosts of the Soul Summit podcast that you guys can find on Carbon TV. She joins me for an episode to talk not just about her show or her organization and all of the awesome things that they're doing over there, which it is pretty incredible work. And I hope you guys feel that in hearing her share that. But also just to talk about hunting and some of the significant moments that we as outdoors men and women experience out there in the woods, some of the moments throughout a hunter's journey that resonate with them. And we have a really awesome and wholesome conversation about that kind of stuff. This is a great episode. And again, please go check out Her Outdoor Journey and the Soul Summit podcast if you haven't already. But before we get to the meat of our conversation with her, I am going to give some of our Fall Obsession partners a quick plug, and then we'll head on over to our conversation. First and foremost is Hoot Camo. I've been wearing Hoot Camo for a couple of seasons now. It is great gear, great quality. The pattern is versatile. It has worked for me in environments as from the plains of Colorado to the mountains in Idaho, down here in the short timber in Texas. I guess you could say the scrub timber, scrub brush, whatever you want to call it, but used it in a ton of different environments, and Hoot Camo comes through for me every single time. I actually talk in this podcast kind of in passing. Another subject is what brought it up, but I mentioned how here this last week I had a whitetail come right underneath my tree that I was sitting in, feet from me, and no idea I was there. So the Hoot gear does the job. Absolutely love it. And the best part about it is affordable for the blue collar hunter if you are trying to get in a good quality set of camouflage. If you go to hootcamo.com and look at their prices, hopefully you guys see that, especially when you compare to other brands. But if you use the code FALLOBSESSION15 when you check out, no matter how big or small your order is, that will save you guys some money. So go check out Hoot Camo at hootcamo.com. News on Safaris is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. We have members of our team and people outside of our organization that we know that have hunted with News On and have had a great experience. And the best part about it is News On is offering Fall Obsession podcast listeners some savings if when you book with them, you tell them that Fall Obsession sent you. Literally, that's all you have to do. Just say, hey, I heard about you guys on Fall Obsession podcast, and they will start knocking some stuff off. Specifically, you guys get a $500 trophy credit, free lodging, food, and drinks. Your professional hunter, tracker, and skinner fees are covered. Basic trophy prep gets taken care of. That's a $2,250 value per person, and you can get that valid for up to 4 people in your hunting party. Do the quick math on that. You could be saving $9,000 on an already expensive trip, no matter who you book with. So if you're looking to book that big adventure you've been saving up for, you need to do it with News On. You can call Tim. His number is 303-946-9441. Again, that's Tim. Tell him that Fall Obsession sent you, and he will get you set up with News On Safaris. Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. I'm sure we have all taken those pictures out in the woods of those grip and grins or memorable moments that we had in the field, whatever it might be. You're excited to see that picture and relive that moment, but whenever you get your eyes on it, it just doesn't quite do it justice, perhaps. Might be a little blurry, out of focus, maybe the lighting's dark or wrong, whatever it might be. What Trophy Edits does is they clean those photos up in whatever regard they need and make the most out of your memory. You can shop around on their website, use the link in this podcast description. That will let them know that you came from us, and we always appreciate that. But see everything that they have to offer and see what Trophy Edits might be able to do for you. The Outdoor Call Radio app is a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession episodes playing on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, along with tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. Go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free, and you can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app on social media, because he does a couple of different live radio shows at local Midwestern stations throughout the week. And even if you're not local to one of those radio stations, he shares those broadcasts on his social media pages. Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app. Go download it today. Last but not least, Ridge Rock Hunt Company is a podcast partner. Derek Eves is your guy if you are looking to book a North American hunt with a vetted and trusted outfitter. Derek has a large network of such people that he will set you up with, people that he knows, trusts, and would hunt with himself. So give Derek Eves a call with Ridge Rock Hunt Company and let him do all the hard work and book that hunt for you. You won't be disappointed. Thank you guys again for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. Whatever podcast platform you are listening to this episode on, please be sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you guys. Turn your notifications on if that's an option for you. That way you know every time a new Fall Obsession podcast gets released. Head on over to the YouTube channel. Be sure you're subscribed over there. Our podcast videos get put on the YouTube channel, but then we also have a lot of other things coming down the pipe, specifically some films that we have in our editing room right now. I'm currently editing our Idaho elk hunt from this 2024 backcountry pack trip that I just took. It's an incredible experience. The film is going to be phenomenal. You guys have got to check it out. We also have some other productions in our editing room, such as our New York whitetail hunt and our Sitka deer hunt that our Fall Obsession team took this year. So all that's going to be coming in the coming weeks to our YouTube channel. So be sure that you go over there and are subscribed. Go to fallobsession.com. That's the website. All of our content and our productions filter through there so you can see everything that we're involved in, everything that we're doing. Pick you up a hat or a shirt if you want to support us, but the best way that you can support us without making an actual financial investment is simply by hitting that share button. It helps us out way more than you realize. So any of our content that's on social media or this podcast, please share it and help spread the word about Fall Obsession. Last but not least, be sure that you check out our shows that are on Carbon TV. This podcast is on Carbon TV, as well as our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, and our two different hunting shows that we produce, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. You can find all those shows on Carbon TV. With that, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Courtney. We are heading to it right now. Thank you all for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam. I'm your host over here, and joining me this week as our guest is Miss Courtney Prete from Her Outdoor Journey. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I'm glad we're going to get to connect today and talk hunting.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it. Another Carbon TV producer as well, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where I first found you guys and started tuning into the show and everything was through Carbon TV and that platform. And both of our shows were actually nominated for the best podcast this last year, which was pretty cool. And I was trying to be supportive, and at the same time I was competitive. I have a competitive spirit, so
Sure. I was right there with you, Sam.
Yeah, but it's good stuff. I always enjoy connecting with other Carbon people on here and the network that they've built over there. But to break the ice, to kick us off for today's episode, Courtney, tell us just who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me on. It's really great to connect, and Carbon TV is such a great platform. If people aren't consuming what they're putting out over there, definitely go check that out.
Yes.
But I'm a small town girl. I grew up with in a town of like 1,500 people, and we just built a house out here. And I'm wildly passionate about helping women find other opportunities to like grow, expand, and really build their network in the outdoors. So I have a company called Her Outdoor Journey. We've been around since 2017, and just trying to find ways that women can dive into, a sisterhood of like-minded women and go on really incredible experiences with educational retreats and some fun destination stuff. I'm a mom of 2 boys, and the journey of motherhood has gone way too quickly. My oldest son is 18 and my youngest is 15, and it's it's, I think the journey of motherhood has really, especially lately, put into perspective like how quick this life goes by.
Right.
So I am very passionate about living a bucket list life instead of having a bucket list. I think, we've all had friends or family or, acquaintances that get a diagnosis or pass too quickly in a car accident or whatever the case is. And we're like, man, their life was so short. And, I'm really just kind of inspired to be doing those things and help other people see their potential to like go out there and chase those big audacious goals, go and book that hunt in that other state or that other place and go do the big thing. So I'm just a big supporter of all things in the outdoors. I love hunting. I've been hunting with my dad since I started when I was like 5. And I think honestly, as much as I enjoyed the satisfaction of meat in the freezer that, we acquired ourselves, I really became intrigued by the wide open spaces, the quietness, the land that seems untouched, right? Like when you walk over a piece of ground and you're like, how many other people have ever been here before? Really, really definitely deepens my appreciation for our public lands and open spaces and the ability to move our capable bodies in the outdoors. So that's probably a little convoluted overview of who I am, but those are some of the things that I'm super passionate about.
Absolutely. No, and I share a lot of those passions, especially here recently. I got to go on a backcountry Idaho elk hunt actually, and that was my first elk hunt to ever go on, and
Oh, wow.
it was pretty extreme, like 25 miles back on horses and the whole shebang. Like, I mean, and anything that you can do back there, like we were going full send with all of it. And I'm from Texas, so I grew up whitetail hunting down here, and then just being able to, you know, be in a different environment, hunt in a different state, and to your point, the wide open spaces and just untouched country that very few people get to see. It's humbling for sure, and it puts a different outlook on life in general, I believe.
It's
So
it's truly life changing,
yes,
and I know that you can probably speak to that as well, and a lot of your listeners and all of those things. But until you get out there, you don't, I think, realize the magnitude of that reality of being remote, right? Just being low on the food chain, so to speak, and living in an area in an environment that it demands everything that you've got,
yes,
right? You've got to be aware, your senses are always turned on, you're listening, feeling, touching, looking. Like, I mean, this could be a whole podcast in itself, but I don't think that there's many places where I truly tap into like my core and my beliefs and my passions like I can when I'm in those kind of removed remote places.
yeah. No, I 100% believe that. Just I reference it at least on our show when I've talked about being unplugged, being
Mhm.
disconnected from the rest of the world, and how that's something that people need from time to time, just humans in general and everything. And like I mentioned, it puts everything back into perspective. And then yeah, it's beautiful and brutal at the same time, because it's,
Mhm.
if you don't have it out there or didn't bring it with you, you're without it, and
Yeah.
you got to make it work and everything. And so yeah, everything's heightened. And uh there is a sense of, not that we're out here, just roughing it and trying to, barely scraping by to live, but it's survival. That's what it is at the end of the day and
Mhm.
everything. And it just kind of takes you back to your roots. So I can relate for sure.
Well, when you get home and you go over and you want clean drinking water and you turn on the faucet,
Right.
right? Like it puts so much of that in perspective, or even taking a shower or cooking a meal or being safe in your house. Those things are, um, you start to like really appreciate them when you have them at home, but crave the discomfort, I think, a little bit too. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. That's just
No,
kind of
I,
how I
I,
feel.
I completely believe that, because like this Flatlander down here going up there, I struggled. I definitely had plenty of struggles going into that environment and everything. And in the moment, there were definitely times where I was like, man, this sucks. But at the same time, I come back now, I'm like, man, I want to go do it again. It's almost like the sucky part isn't even in my mind anymore, even though I'm
Mhm.
aware that it did. Like there's something there that draws you in for sure. So.
Hunting out west is definitely a drug. If you don't want to be addicted, don't do it.
100% agree with that. I've gotten to do a handful now in various places, and yeah, I would say that I'm addicted in that sense for sure. I'm trying to go do something every year out there. So,
Good for you. Well, there's a lot of opportunity out here for sure.
oh yeah, absolutely. I'm jealous of all y'all that get to live out there, and that is your hunting for sure, because there's man, it's just epic. That's my summarization of it is it's epic.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
So anyway, I feel like I'm talking about myself all of a sudden. So I wanna ask you though, because you mentioned and talked kind of about your mission with her outdoor journey and everything and the purpose behind that and everything. But I want to go and look at the origin of that, because
Mm,
it's one thing to recognize a need for something like that or to develop a passion for something like that, but I feel like it's a whole nother level, a whole nother step to actually create a brand and a company that is solely focused on that. So, talk
mhm.
to us about that jump. Talk to us about what made you actually want to establish this organization.
Yeah, great question. I think, a lot of businesses start as a passion. Some of them start from innovation or, different features. But for me, this was really like, I am so grateful that my family instilled a love for the outdoors and hunting and conservation. But it wasn't until, I was always the only female in camp, and that was fine. It never occurred to me really until I was in high school. And I'd show up to deer camp, and it was, my dad, his hunting buddies, and some of their sons. And I was always the only girl. And once I hit that, like adolescent, early teenage years, I started being like, maybe this is kind of weird. Like, why am I the only girl? I had heard of some other girls and stuff that were hunting, but I would leave school in October and I would miss, a week of school, and then I'd get back and everybody's like, well, where were you? And I was like, I was hunting. They're like, that's weird. And I grew up in a town with 28 kids in my class. Like, we were country and redneck as it gets, but it was
Yeah.
still, kind of this taboo kind of thing. And so I continued to rifle hunt with my dad, and my dad's parents both got sick. And so I lost my hunting partner for a bit, as he was working to take care of them and go through, cancer treatments and all these different things. And so I thought, what a better time to learn something new. I want to put a bow in my hand and figure out what this whole archery thing is about. And I fell in love, head over heels, was obsessed with the process of it, being bad at it, like learning, having to refine those skills and do better. And I had spent, at the time, 10 years, 12 years in health and fitness. I was a coach and had a gym and did a lot of training in our local area, for years. And so the coaching kind of aspect seemed like a pretty natural fit to me. But I am a firm believer that we shouldn't operate outside of our wheelhouse, right? Like, we shouldn't teach people things that we don't know. We shouldn't pretend to know things that we don't. And so I went and I worked with a really incredible coach, which probably a lot of people know of. His name is Joel Turner. And he was doing some stuff called Shot IQ and really understanding the process of your shot and your archery, and worked with him for years. And he's absolutely incredible. He helped me get some national titles in the archery competitive world. And so it was just kind of fell into, women were asking me questions and bow setups and, how to get physically stronger. And man, I was in this, tree stand this year, and a buck finally came in, and I went to draw my bow, and it was hard. I wasn't expecting that, right? So then I started thinking about all these different ways that archery hunters, and in my world, women could improve their physical abilities and their skills to make them more successful. And so we started doing some just free seminars. We'd go around to the local bow shops and do these things. And the women, I mean, it was co-ed at the time. And there was, it was a mixed bag. But it was the women that I really connected with. And they had extra questions. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was pulled aside and had a lady be saying something like, my husband or my boyfriend or my partner or whatever has been trying to teach me this thing, but it's so hard to learn from him. And to this day, like, 9 years later, I hear it every single time from almost every single lady. And it's not because men aren't good teachers, right? Like you guys are incredible. And there are some great teachers that are males. But I think that there is a disassociation when it comes to a man trying to teach a woman how to do certain things. You just can't always understand how our bodies work. I mean, this is a trivial example, but like wearing a bino harness, if you don't have breasts, like it's going to be hard to understand how it feels, how it fits, and all of those different things. And so I said, hey, we're going to just do a ladies only thing. And that started, and we have not looked back since. We started with 2 events a year. We went up to 5 events a year, then to 6. And this year, I've actually had the pleasure of hiring 4 guides, and we've expanded into, gosh, I can't remember, 7 or 8 states now. And we're offering 30 events in 2025. So we're super blessed. I honestly had no idea. I thought I was kind of doing something for this community, building something that I wish I had when I was growing up and learning to hunt and expanding my horizons. But I had no idea the sisterhood that would form from this. It's been the most incredible, most beautiful thing. I have women that have come into camps or archery events, and they walk in and they're like, oh, where are you from? Grants Pass? Like, oh, me too. Oh, you too? Like, I've got women who are traveling the world together now, who are, their families are integrated, who, one gal just met her future husband through these mutual connections, right? So it's so much more than like outdoor education and confidence building and skill building. It is truly a network of sisters who are now, paving the way for other people. And I think that's, really the highlight on what we do at HOJ. We're stepping into something, but we want to make a tidal effect so that it ripples out and affects other women positively in this space as well.
It's crazy how something like that turns into just a family in and of itself. Like it's just hunting and the outdoors have that effect on people, and it brings people together like that, and it's incredible. I hear so many testimonies such as yourself or various organizations where just that occurs, and it happens so organically and on its own. Like
Yes.
there's initiative to obviously make the initial connections and everything, but then people do it on their own and build and nurture those relationships, and their relationships that last a lifetime, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
So what are some examples of, like you talked about 30 events coming up in 25? What are some examples of these events that you guys have going on?
Oh man. So this will be the first place I've really publicly talked about this, and we're launching on the following Monday. So at the time of this airing, our events will probably be out, but like I said, we started with archery events and really hunting related things. And we're still doing a ton of those. We've got some guided hunts, turkey hunts. We're looking at doing axis deer in Hawaii again, and then some elk hunts in Montana. But we have really focused this year on providing events that hit people at the core. So focusing on wellness, health, longevity, kind of resetting the nervous system. So we've got a couple wellness retreats that are coming, one in Washington State and one in Kauai, which will be absolutely amazing. We also have some just really fun adventure retreats. So this will be our 3rd annual Alaska adventure retreat. And we've got 2 of them, one in Kodiak, Alaska, and one up on the Kenai Peninsula. And we're doing a lot of exploration. So horseback riding up the glacier. We're going to do some ATV, UTV trips, and we're going to go hang out on the glacier and check that out. We're doing bear viewing. So last year we went into Crescent Lake and got to fish and watch the bears. And those trips. So to put it into perspective, we had 13 ladies, and all 13 of them were filled with tears on the flight out of Crescent Lake. It touches you at this like core level. And anyway, that's just a whole nother thing. It's so powerful. It's so great.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of different things going on. And whether you're looking for a guided hunt or you want to go learn how to get into waterfowl hunting, we're doing an intro to waterfowl. We're doing intro to turkey hunting. So lots of different opportunities, whether you want to step in and learn some new skills in a safe, comfortable, controlled environment with women who share a lot of your same passions. It's a great way to, build those skills, but also just get connected with other women who want to do some of the same things that you want to do.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And like these, you talked about the axis steer or the elk hunts or that kind of stuff. Are you guys going with outfitters, or is it a do-yourself type hunt trip, that kind of thing?
So right now, everything that we're doing is guided.
Guided.
So I have my guide's license in Oregon and in Hawaii, so we can guide some hunts over there. But when we don't have the qualifications for it, we always find a great outfitter that does, and we find outfitters who are really willing to put in the extra little bits and pieces to teach women. Right? Like we don't necessarily think that everybody just needs to continue to go on guided hunts. That's great, and there's definitely a need for that, but we want to build the skill. Like that's very important to us, that we're not going to come out there and just go through, how to do it and we're going to do it for you. Just the same thing with our archery. I won't touch a woman's bow. I will help her. I will walk her through step by step on how to tune a bow, how to, sight in for broadheads, how to make adjustments when she's dialing in. But I want her to do that, because that's where your power is, right? Like that's when they get the power, is when they have got the Allen wrenches in their hand. They've got, a box call, and they're learning to do all of the calls themselves. So whether it's our internal guides or external outfitters that we're bringing in, there's always somebody to help support.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have my friend, I don't know if you know him or not, Johnny Mack from the Soul Seekers podcast as well. His slogan is mentorship is conservation. And I believe that in that just mentorship in general and passing that down, you're developing future hunters and building that for generations to come. At that point, the whole saying knowledge is power is bogus in my opinion. It needs to be shared for sure. So
Yeah, it is. And, knowledge can be power, right? You
true,
could know
it can.
something, but not apply it. So I always say knowledge can be power, because it's all in how you use it. But no, it's wildly important. And for years, for the first like 5 years or something, all we did was, on hands-on skill building, but we weren't taking them into the field. And I think for retention, which is the longevity of hunting and outdoors, like we can get people inspired to go hunt, but if we're not helping them like retain these skills and actually year after year buy the tags, go out hunting, be a part of these efforts, we're really losing. So
Mhm.
retention is the key, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that you have hired other guides now. So, and I think when you said that, that's pretty significant to me as a show host and an owner of a company in this industry, because the hunting and outdoor industry as a whole, it seems like, it is, you got to put in a lot of work, as you know, to excel in it and to thrive. And in my opinion, hearing that, being able to provide employment opportunities now in the hunting industry to other people, that's a huge jump as well, and giving people the opportunity to get paid to do what they love. So that's awesome if that's what you're able to do.
I honestly feel like I'm living in a dream right now. This was a really early on, very lofty goal. I was like, I don't even know if I'll ever achieve this, but here I am, and walking through the moments. And it might have a little bit to do with me, but it has a lot to do with these women.
Right.
And, even when I put out my first post about hiring, the outpouring of women and their stories of like, this is my story and this is why I want to help other women, like literally brought me to tears. I'm like, there are so many passionate, incredible, kind-hearted people that really want to just make space. Like to me, that is so great. And it does feel like a little bit of a dream. And it's amazing. I'm so grateful. I'm so, so grateful. But I will say it's a lot of work,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's been very hard, and there's been a lot of trials. So I don't want any business owner listening to that, whether you're in the outdoor industry or not, to listen and go like, oh, well, man, I'm not making it, because there's a lot that happens and a lot of sacrifices and a lot of, questioning moments. So it's not always rainbows, but yes, I feel very blessed.
Awesome. Very cool. So I want to ask you too, because you have the HOJ organization that's blazing the trails, but you also have this podcast as well. So talk to me a little bit about that and what inspired you to enter the podcast world, and also I'm curious as to the name and the inspiration behind that.
Yeah. So years ago, I was on Jack words sometimes are very hard. Zach, I'm trying to think of his last name now. It's been so long. Harold, I think. He's big into archery, and he asked if I would co-host, and I did a couple, segments and co-hosted for a bit, and it was fun. It was not necessarily my wheelhouse. I am very introverted, so getting on and talking for hours can be, hard sometimes. And then after that kind of ended, I felt really called, and I'll just put it out there. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in God. And I felt like the Lord really put it on my heart that whatever the things that were going to come out of my mouth or my guest's mouth were going to be highly impactful. But I was still in like this internal conflict because I'm like, there are so many podcasts, right? This was in 2018, I think. There's so many podcasts. Like, why do you need to start one? Like, all the things to talk yourself out of it. And I remember exactly where I was driving on the road, and I was still kind of having this battle. And I felt this, just like, if it's only for one, then you've done your job. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really cool because our show is definitely about, wellness, perspective, mindset, mental health, hunting, outdoors, family, faith. But I've had a handful of people that have directly reached out to me and said, I was going through one of the darkest times of my life and had planned to end everything. And something that you said in your podcast hit me at my core. And it's been the turning point for me in my life. And so now I have this, like, yeah, it's a lot about hunting, but it's so crazy because the things that we do, say, the interactions that we have with people, whether we ever know them or not, are making impact. Mm-hmm. Is it positive or is it negative? Like, it can be one or the other, or kind of somewhere in between. But for me, the Soul Summit podcast, my co-host, our guests, our job is to help empower our listeners, whether that's for you to go out and do the out west hunt, or for you to maybe have some perspective to pull back and give your family some attention, or it's for you to chase your entrepreneurial dreams, right? Like, there's so much in there. And I think that we've been really, really excited about what we've been able to achieve. We've had some incredible guests. Our co-host who's on for now season 8, Heidi Stout, has been just an absolute dream on the show. And, really talking about lots of different things, from upper level skills in hunting to kind of that ground floor foundation of, man, how do I even find elk? How do I navigate on X maps? Like, just those kind of foundational things that we think will really be valuable for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, from my perspective at least, just looking you guys up and tuning in to some episodes and stuff, it seems like you have, as you refer to it, as seasons, and it seems like you kind of focus on certain things from season to season and have some intentionality behind that, I guess. And that's something that it takes a lot of forethought, I think, and a lot of planning for sure, as a fellow podcast host, knowing how a production schedule and all that kind of stuff works.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shows that don't do it, and ours being one. Like, we don't have seasons or themes or anything. We go from episode to episode. But yeah, I guess my question is just on that intentionality and everything, and what made you want to take on that format?
Well, I guess one of the first things that comes to mind is I have ADHD. And so if I'm not focused, like, we're going to be all over the road. And I don't know that anybody wants a part of that, right? Like, this morning I was trying to put on some foundation, and the next thing you know, I have my foundation brush in my hand, but I'm also like redoing our guest bathroom, right? I'm like, okay, I've got to focus, got to stay in my lane here. No, but in all seriousness, it's just, we want to make impact, right? And for me, I feel like if I don't go into an episode having some sort of like an idea of what I want to talk about or some sort of constraints, I don't know that our listeners are going to take away the value that we want them to take away.
Right.
Like, every episode, there might be some that are just encouragement, right? But we want everything that we put out there to be something that our listeners truly, truly do feel like tactical information or advice or things that they can go and implement and really be inspired by that. Because I think that if the people in our communities, I hate the word followers, so I'll never use that, but if our communities, our listeners, the people online, if they're feeling a little bit of that ripple effect of positivity, I'm hoping that they share that with other people. Yeah. And we all know how bad our world needs that right now. But I've got an incredible podcast producer. Her name is Hannah, and she needs all of the credit because she's the one that really helps us, keep our timelines and stay focused and work to refine the season and to to cultivate guests that have, similar passions and want to really share their education with other people.
Absolutely. That's awesome. As a as a podcast host, what have been some of your biggest struggles throughout the journey, and as you just over time have produced episode after episode?
On a personal level, it's speech. Speech is something, I've got autoimmune stuff. And so speech can be really hard for me. And it's something that for a long time, I kind of put me back in a box. And I don't know, you might not have noticed, but I took a little hiatus for about a year on the podcast. And I was just really struggling with my confidence personally to like articulate myself in the way that I wanted to. So that's kind of on the personal side. But I think some of the other hurdles would be stepping into a room with some really, really incredible people, exceptional guests, and feeling like I could do them justice, right? Feeling like I could ask the right questions, pull the right stories, deepen things in the right way to really do service to their stories and their mission.
I would agree with that for sure. There's been some guests for certain that I've been like, I have no business having you on my show. Like that's my feeling, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like at the end of the day, we're all hunters and outdoors men and women, and I feel like that, and it does take a certain person to be able to break the ice and kind of get the ball rolling for some people that is. But I feel like once you get to that level within a guest surface, as far as just they're just a hunter just like you, just a person just like
Yeah.
you, I feel like um, that's where an episode really starts to take shape. That's where a conversation really starts to go more organically and go deeper at that point. And I feel like that's the side of people that as far as I say big names in the industry, right? It's not that they're any bigger or any more special than anybody else, but that's where people I think can maybe see a side of people that they haven't seen before. People that they look
Yeah.
up to and have the realization that they're while they may have a show or whatever, they're no different, right? They're no
Hmm.
different,
Hmm.
and I think that's a cool connection to be able to establish with a guest that is.
I agree completely. Yep.
What about some of the highlights? What are some of the things for you as a podcast host that personally that you enjoy, that you yourself benefit from in having these conversations and frequently getting behind a mic with other folks?
Well, I think, there's that selfish aspect. Like, I get to ask a lot of my questions, right? Like, I can have Mark Livesey on the show, who's, in my opinion, like top e-scouter out there. And I can ask the questions that I want to know because I know if I want to know them, other people do as well. So I really do get to fill kind of my gaps and the things that I want to learn and, just dive into those conversations. Um, I think a lot of times for me, it's inspiration to either there's two different sides to my coin. I'm either needing motivation to just keep on keeping on, or the reminder that rest is okay. You can unplug, you can take some downtime. So I think that just really knowing that my listeners, take a lot of value away. They take the insights, the tactical information, but I do too. And so for me, that's really cool. And so when we're outlining these shows and, when we're doing a season, the season's all about like pre-hunting season strategies, tips, tricks, advice from some of the industry's top professionals. Like we all get to feel a little bit more equipped when we go into that season. And so I think that's been really great is really just getting to scratch that itch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned earlier my first elk hunt being this year, so I tried to have some guests on the show that um, could benefit anybody from a
Yeah.
conversation over, guy going elk hunting for the first time, for example. But
Mhm.
to your point, my selfish reasons was like I need to know more about elk hunting. So
Yeah.
guess what? I'm gonna have these guys on the show and we're gonna talk about it. So
Yeah.
and but that's part of it. That's other people should learn from your experiences. Other people should learn from whatever you're going through. I feel like and a platform like a podcast or a show or anything that either of us are doing, I feel like
Yeah.
is a way to share that and get that out to other people. So
And I think being a student, right? Like I hope I never stop wanting to learn.
yes.
Because I feel like once you do, whether you're just acting like you know it all or you just get complacent, like you just need to keep resetting the bar for yourself. What do I want to learn? Where do I want to get better? What do I want to be more proficient at? Right. I think that those things keep me really inspired to have these conversations and to dig deeper. One of my goals is to try to hunt a new species every year. And yes, I would love to focus on elk. Elk are really my passion, but I want to be in an environment where I don't know much about an animal, where I have to learn a new species and behaviors and habitat and patterns, right? Like to me, that's going to just make me better as a hunter overall if I can put myself more in those diverse situations. It's the same thing with conversations for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What was or is, maybe it hadn't happened yet. What's the new hunt for 24? You doing anything new this year to fulfill that goal?
I did. So this year for me, I had a few new firsts, a couple solo kills that were great, but the big one, the pinnacle for me was mountain goat hunting in Alaska,
Oh
which we
wow.
just got back from. And, it got to fill that curiosity for me, I've been around goats just a little bit, but got to learn a lot more, watch them a ton, see the behaviors. And then remote Alaska. I mean, don't go there. It sucks, but it's really great.
Well, that was going to be a question I had as somebody that's never been there. You see all these videos and everything. Is it worth? Does it live up to the hype? Like you see all these
No,
videos
it's
and you're
terrible. No.
like,
Yeah, no, it's really bad. Don't go. It's super dangerous. It's ugly. Yeah, not worth it. No, Alaska has my heart. It is
yeah,
one of the most incredible places on this earth, in my opinion. And it renews me. It fills me so full of gratitude and appreciation for how big, rugged, wild this earth is. And the first time I went to Alaska was on a kind of a random invite to go on a sheep hunt. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And
hmm,
when I think about Alaska, like I think about, bears and fish and snow and cold and northern lights, right? Like that's my pre going to Alaska thoughts. And it is one of the, I mean, just the sheer size of Alaska itself. And I was thinking, oh, there's gonna be animals everywhere, right? It's like, no, I call Alaska to this day the state of feast and famine,
hmm,
right? Like you're either in it or you're out of it. And you can walk for miles and miles and miles and cross mountaintops and go through valleys and you won't see an animal or you won't see any bones, right? Like there's just out here where I live, in the Pacific Northwest and Western Oregon, it's so different, right? It's you just think of, well, and I think everybody has this, right? Like you have something in your mind, some concept or idea of what something is or isn't. And then you go and you actually are in that moment, you're like, oh, wow, what I expected was so different than what the reality is. And so I think that's one of the cool places where you can just really go and explore and feel very, what I like, bottom of the food chain. You've got to fight for it.
yeah,
You've got to be on your game. You've got to be present. You don't care. Like you could leave civilization with financial trouble or relationship problems or whatever. You go into the mountains, you go somewhere remote, you like dive into a whole different situation and your problems just change. Like your
hmm.
problem is like finding water, having shelter, staying dry, staying warm, not getting eaten. Like for me, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, like I said, but to me, I really, really enjoy that.
It's so simple yet so vital to
So vital.
any sort of experience like that. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So the hunt this year, you talked about the experience and everything. Were you able to fill your tag or
I did.
you
Yeah,
did?
I did fill my tag. Yeah,
Awesome.
I was feeling super grateful. It was kind of a sub goal of mine to shoot it with my bow. I love archery hunting and I had carried my bow the whole time, but I wasn't super committed. I've been on hunts where there's a rifle available, but I just have stayed committed to the bow. But this one I was like, whatever happens, whatever the situation ends up presenting. My billy ended up being on the very top of a mountain and kind of in some unsafe to get to terrain. And so, I took a 100-yard shot with the rifle. Don't regret it at all. Took a little tumble down a cliff afterwards. And so that shook me up a bit. But I also was able to learn, like, okay, take the 2 minutes it takes to put your micro spikes on, and then go the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So it just goes back to, like, life is fickle, right? Like, pay attention, because it could change in a moment's notice.
Yeah, in a footstep. One step is all it
And a
takes.
footstep, yep, absolutely.
How long have you always been an archery hunter?
No, I started archery hunting in 2015. I started archery in 2015 and started hunting, I believe, in 2018.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've been archery hunting for, I don't know, probably the last 12 or 13 years. I've had a bow in my hand at least, but the last 11 years I've been archery only. So for anything big game, that is. So when you talk about, really wanting to get it done with the bow and everything, I I have an appreciation for that. I went to Idaho in what should have been rifle country, right? And trying to get it done just with a stick and string. Just yeah, that humbles you too, as far as just
Oh, yeah.
adding that whole other element. And I
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the challenge. That's why I do it. Some people think I'm dumb, but that's why I do it.
Sometimes I think I'm dumb when I'm out there, and
Yeah.
everybody's like, tagged out already with a rifle, and I'm just, still trying to bang my head against that same wall. But, to me, as long as our freezer's full and we're not hurting to feed our families, the challenge, honestly, the intimacy, when you can
Hmm.
see the critter's eyelashes with your, naked eyes, um, when in my opinion you have to be so stealthy and skilled that you're truly beating them at their game. And this is not hating on rifle hunters, so please don't hear that, but with a rifle they could unexpectedly take that bullet. They can with an arrow as well, but you've had to get yourself in a position real
Hmm.
close, and to me that's what I really appreciate about archery, is that it takes a different mindset and skill set for
Yeah.
sure. And I'm getting ready to I just got a super incredible opportunity to go to New Zealand and hunt tar.
Oh wow.
And so I was originally going for this trifecta of goats. I got a goat with my bow in Australia this year, and one in Hawaii, and then the mountain goat with my rifle. But then I was like, wait, tar, tar is a goat. Like, this is going to be awesome. And so I was just talking to my husband this morning, and I was like, I'm really thinking about taking my bow to New Zealand. And he's like, Courtney, just don't do it. Just don't even put yourself through that right now. But yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, everybody was telling me not to take my bow on the cell cut and everything, and my wife was also just like she's like, if you don't have a shot, are you gonna break out a rifle and actually shoot one? And I mean, it's a story in and of itself. I had one in bow range, and I just didn't have a clear shot is all it was. But to me, like that in and of itself was just, I was up here with that, even though I didn't actually get to be the one to shoot it. It was like, golly, that is an animal like that so close. And to me, that is an element of fair chase. And I went bow only because I shot the biggest whitetail to this day I still ever shot with a rifle 11 years ago,
Mhm.
and tickled to death, awesome buck. But in my mind, as I reflected on it, I was like, it's too easy, and that's what led to that push for me. And even the other day, I was in one of my tree stands down here in Texas, and I just had a little buck out there. I wasn't gonna shoot him or anything, but I was just watching him, and he came right, like, I don't know, 9 feet from the base of my ladder. Like, he's right there and just right under me, and I'm just watching him and got some video footage of him and stuff. But I'm just like, this, I don't get this when I'm sitting in a rifle stand. You don't get
Yeah.
to experience this. You don't get to have wildlife on top of you or underneath you
Mm-hmm.
like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother it's a whole nother level of connection with the animal, I feel like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I have quite the bold disappointment story for this year. So I get it when you say, man, they're right there, but you don't get the shot. It's ugh. And it's one of those things that is it's a high, and then it's a real low.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you're probably similar, but then you just think, all the different other scenarios, or should I have done something different, or what if this, what if that. So those are the things, though, man. You can't They're going to just keep you inspired until next September, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So
Yeah. It's it's experiences that you live and grow by for sure. And
mhm.
like looking back, I don't regret any part of it. Yes, it would have been awesome to be able to actually release my arrow, but I mean, I don't regret any of it. It was I learned from it, I grew from it, and that's what matters to me. It's more than just the kill, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Absolutely.
so what I always ask people that we have on our show this, and you mentioned that elk hunting was a big thing for you, but I want to ask you just in general, what is one of your favorite hunting memories to date, and if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Um, Gosh, I go back to the story that I always tell, which is my dad's big buck story in the pond. And it's the moment I knew that I wanted to be a hunter. Do you want me to tell that story? I've told it a lot on podcast, or do you want a different one?
Please do whatever you want to share. It doesn't. I'm good with all
So
of it.
I love this story because it was so pivotal for me. My parents, like I said, took me out, hunting. I was knee high to a grasshopper. My dad was, patient enough to take me out there. But I had yet to be a part of like the actual hunt, the actual kill, the gunshot, the blood, the cleaning, all of those elements that could really throw off a 5-year-old girl. And I can't remember how old I was. I might have been 6 or so. And my dad was already over at our deer camp in Central Oregon. And my mom threw my sister and I in the car, and we met dad over there. Always camped in the same spot. It was like that nostalgia, right? Like, oh, there's my little tree fort, and there's, all my little things. And we get there and we just pull in. And I'm like, Dad, can we go to the frog pond? Just down the dirt road was this pond, and it obviously always had frogs in it. And he's like, sure, let me grab my rifle. And so we get going, and we're walking down there, and we get just to where I could just barely see it around the bend. I just know that pond's right there, and I'm so excited. And I just take off running. And as I'm running, I'm starting to be like, why is there a moving tree in the pond, And it kind of like dawns on me as my family calls me Annie. He's like, Annie, stop. And I stop, like, just, this picture, like cartoon, like the feet pedaling forward. And this buck lifts his head up. This mule deer buck lifts his head up, and I'm like, oh gosh. And so I'm kind of like tiptoeing back. My dad gets in front of me, and he kills this buck. And he dies in the water. And of course, naturally the water in this pond, a small pond, fills up and is super bloody. And I remember walking up to it, and I felt so proud. I felt so excited. I didn't look at it and go, ooh, that's gross, or oh my gosh. And I do now that I'm an adult, I have so much more care for the animal, and, thank it for its life, and, work for this, quick, clean death and all these things. But I was just so excited that like my dad got it done. And I remember we pulled it out of the pond, and my dad dressed it out and kind of explained, in kid terms what he was doing. And we have this picture. Is it somewhere? I thought I had it right here. And it's myself, my sister, and my dad. And we're sitting in the back of this old junky pickup truck that we always had. And this buck is there, and everybody's all bloody. And my sister's holding the rifle, and I'm holding this bloody knife. And I am so, like, you could just tell, like, I am so, so excited about this. And my sister's just kind of like indifferent. Well, it's funny, and we talk about this, my sister and I do. So my sister is that threw her the other direction. She's vegan, and not a hunter, and very different. And to me, that was the moment when I was like, I want to be a hunter too. Like, I want to do this. I want to hang it and skin it and look at this meat and take care of it and put it in our freezer and feed the family and be excited about that. So for me, it's not like this big, monster buck, or, super old age class bull or whatever, but it was the moment for me that really defined, I want to be a hunter someday.
That's awesome. That's awesome that early in your life too, you can reflect on and remember a story like that so vividly. I think most hunters that have a moment like that early on, they're able to, and I think that's vital to be able to share that testimony with other people, and also remind folks too. Like hearing that story myself, it's like, okay, as a parent now, I look at, I have a son who's around that age, 6, 7, and who's hunting with me, who has the bug, and I'm also just like, there's a part of me always just as a parent, it's like, oh man, it's a lot of work taking a kid that small out there with you and everything. But hearing other people's stories from back when they had a significant moment from that age range, or then me looking back on my own, it's like, okay, this is important. This is how you do it. This is where it begins. And obviously, if I don't do it, or if my dad didn't do it, or if your family didn't do it, then would it have ever happened? So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it's vital to the growth of development.
It is so hard though,
Yes.
so for parents or, guardians listening in, for mentors listening in, it is hard. And it's especially hard, I think, for the individuals who, don't get much time in the field. If you've only got 2 weekends that you can get out there, taking little ones to help be that mentor and nurture that love for the outdoors, it's tricky, and I've talked to a lot of men and women who are like, I only get 4 days. And so I want to be successful. We need to put the meat in the freezer. And so, I just always say, do your best. It's not, it changes a lot. Every season is different when you've got kiddos in the field, but make it fun.
Yeah.
Start talking about tracking and, scat identification, and talking about rubs. And it's great if you can hunt a species where you don't have to be super quiet too. That can be helpful. So just make them comfy, bring lots of snacks and a whole heap of patience.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely worth it.
Yeah. That's where the quiet, finding somewhere where you can, or a species that you can hunt where, you got to be super quiet, or don't have to be, that's where I struggle, because I'm a bow hunter. We just talked about that. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't rifle hunt. I don't sit 100, 200 yards away from these deer. So that's just another element, and another challenge. But, my son, he understands that, and he's doing his best, and he's got the bug. So we're making the most of it. But
So perfect. That's awesome.
what you talked also earlier about trying to do something, something new every year and everything like that. What is in your mind a really unique experience, a unique hunt, something like that you've had the opportunity to do so far?
First one that comes to mind, there's a couple, but the first one that comes to mind is a black bear hunt out of Valdez. And we hunted from a boat, which was totally different for me, so we're going up and using the water to get to different places for glassing, and glassing out of a boat is a whole nother thing. And either use some stabilizing binoculars, or prepare to have a little buzz after it. But yeah, I think just it was unique to be able to, we slept on the water in the boat and woke up and glassed from the boat, and we're getting to watch lots of bears and beautiful country. So I think that was kind of something that was fun and unique. Moose hunting too, after really growing into kind of an elk hunter, moose hunting was cool, because it's another one of those animals that you can call to you, find a spot, get on a ridge top, do some calling, do some raking, let them come to you. I think the animals that you can call and really communicate with are an especially fun challenge, because you're kind of playing their game. You're anybody that's ever had a bull bugle off back to them or challenge them, right? Like there's just a little bit of extra satisfaction in knowing like you're the thing that helped get that animal fired up,
Yeah.
to want to come breed or kill you or whatever the case is. So I think that's pretty cool. But I've had a lot of kind of cool, unique ones. Some hunts that start as hunting for one species and quickly turns into hunting another species. Some where you just run into tons of people. I mean, anything can happen when you're out there. But I think one of the ones that has made me more proud have been the ones where I've been guiding other people. I think that just the satisfaction of watching somebody else's success for me is so much bigger than any success that I could have. And I say it all the time, like I hate killing animals. I honestly do. I honestly hate that part. I think a lot of hunters do. I've said, like, if it wasn't for needing to put meat in the freezer, I could just be out there with a camera in my hand, following my husband or my friends or my clients around or whatever. But um, watching other people's success, I think, has definitely been top of the list.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, everybody wants to be the person with the gun or the bow that flings the arrow and is successful, but I myself have gotten just as excited, if not more excited, with other people being successful in front of me, or I've seen other people, have more excitement than the dude that actually pulled the trigger. We do a veteran hunt down here at Fall Obsession where we have the last 3 years and everything just for whitetail. Take a veteran out on a whitetail hunt in our local area, and that's been one of the most awesome things. I go out there every year with it as the producer, just to film and be there in camp and help out our hunt host that's making it all happen. And every time it's such an enjoyable time because we're able just to just the community and the camaraderie that's there in camp with a unique individual that we're giving an opportunity to that wouldn't have it otherwise, and then to see their excitement when they actually pull the trigger and put something down. It's awesome. The guy we took the first year was actually from Washington State, had never hunted whitetail before in his life. So to get to see him just overcome with excitement when he puts a nice 8 point on the ground, it's just like, oh man, that's what it's all about. That's why we do
best.
it. Yes.
It's the best. It really is. And you said, sure, anybody wants to. I truly don't. I truly don't. If I could just watch, whether it's my kids or my clients or a friend, I try to take a girl on a hunt every year to kill her first something. And that's kind of a new thing for me the last 3 years. And the last 3 years, I've got to see the success, and it's magical. Like, I don't have even sophisticated enough words to describe like that moment for them when, whether they've been hunting for a long time and haven't got to put it together, or, they were kind of maybe more of like a non-hunter, anti-hunter, and they have now started to see this importance of, wild game and the sustainable, conservation approach. Gosh, hands down, my favorite moments is just showing them like, you've got what it takes.
Yeah.
You did this. You're taking that meat home to your family. You're taking that to your kids. Like, yeah, that's the cherry on top for me.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I also, you mentioned something, and it wasn't an initial point I was going to bring up, but when you were talking about your hunting from the boat and all that kind of stuff, you mentioned calling, right, and bringing animals into you and everything, and it just got my mind kind of running around because it's like, man, how crazy is that? And I had that opportunity to reflect on just the concept of calling in a big game animal after my elk hunt, because that elk that we had in bow range, we called him in, and after that I was just thinking, man, this country is so massive. Just there's so that animal could go anywhere, but yet it comes to right there, and I just it was unique for me. I almost felt like a new hunter again, getting to experience that, because I've hunted for years down here in Texas with deer, but I don't know. I feel like out there in the West, you guys might get to experience that and have a better appreciation for that, because I never realized the appreciation that I should have for it until I was out there, because I have my own unique thought process on calling deer in down here. But out there, it's just, what an incredible ball game.
No, it really is. It's definitely it's the pinnacle, I think. And, it's so different too. If you're doing spot and stock or you're still hunting, as opposed to being in a ground blind or a tree stand, like you're having to you're having to figure out, watch the wind, watch your steps sometimes, depending on the species, figure out where they're talking from, of how, or where are they going, where are they coming from, as opposed to sitting somewhere stationary and wanting them to come to you or on a plot. Those things are not bad, but it is definitely so much more hands-on when you are trying to vocalize with the species, when you're doing spot and stock, when you're trying to cut them off, like, when you're trying to pull a bull from his herd, those things, I think they just really elevate the entire excitement of it. And really the pride that you can get after you are successful. And success, again, it is not always a notch tag and an animal on the ground. success so many times for me anyways is learning how to do something better, being more effective the next time I approach that situation. Same thing with my 330 bull this year that I totally screwed the pooch on. My bad, my fault. I learned something, right? Like this bull did not do what I for sure expected him to do. And I learned something. Okay, I should do this a little bit differently next time. But those things to me are definitely successes.
Absolutely. Yes. The experiences, the learning, the growth that you as a
Mm-hmm.
hunter have from year to year, that's what makes you successful. And cherry on top is an animal on the ground, in my opinion. So,
Yep.
I got a couple more questions for you as we kind of start to head toward our conclusion in our conversation. The first one being you have talked about trying to do something different every year. You've talked about some memorable ones, some previous ones. What's on your bucket list per se? What is a hunt that you really want to do and you would consider a once in a lifetime hunt that you haven't gotten to do yet?
Oh man. Um, it's that's a funny place to be right now because I just did one of my biggest bucket list hunts, which was mountain goat.
That's awesome.
My second one has been hunting New Zealand, and I'm about to do that just for this really awesome friend and opportunity. But it doesn't always happen like that, right? Like usually bucket list things are things that you really have to plan for and think long and hard about. Um, so more of a once in a lifetime thing for me, I would say I'm not sure that I'm there yet, but a grizz with my bow
Mm,
probably is that once in a lifetime thing. Now, I totally embrace conservation and predator management and this whole, approach to our, you know, our wildlife populations as a whole. But I'm also the hunter that I don't kill things unless I eat them.
right.
Not to say that predators don't need to be managed. So that's where I'm kind of grappling right now is it's more in a conservative measure, for predation than it is for consumption. And so that's where I'm trying to get my mind right in that element of like, okay, well, I don't kill things that I don't eat, but this is also really important to, protect the prey species. So, but I think that that is really something that would be kind of the pinnacle for me. Apex predator with a bow, get in close, make a, great shot. And I think that would be pretty awesome. But to be honest, I haven't spent too much more time thinking about it because I'm kind of living the bucket list things right
That's
now.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, there comes a time where you have to do them or you're able to do them, and yeah, so you go and do them. You can dream about stuff, but until you actually take initiative and make it happen, that's what it is a dream. So that's awesome that you're able to do that. I the bear thing would be pretty cool with a bow for sure. I have I've not I'm more warmed up to the idea of bear hunting myself, but for my own reasons, I too feel like I'm not quite there yet. But that would be a
Mm-hmm.
cool thing to do for sure one day. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's so much more, in my opinion, about this specific hunt for me. It's going to push so many of my fears, right?
Yes.
It's going to push me to a point where I have to grow. You either, grow or you get out. So I think that that's why I tend to look at those things, not as like something like, oh, this is a trophy. I really want to kill this animal. It's like, no, getting to a place where I could even have an opportunity is going to push me to be a better person, stronger, less fear based. And so that I kind of think um, is why I choose some of those different things because I know that it'll really challenge me. But I would say probably more than anything, my son's big bucket list, my youngest son's big bucket list is a dull sheep. And I think that next year we're going to take him on that hunt. So that will
Wow.
trump anything else that I could do personally.
That would be incredible to cross that out for somebody else. Your child at that. That's awesome. That'd be really cool.
And to nurture that love,
Yeah.
he wants to be a pilot or a wildlife biologist. And we did a remote moose hunt with him, got dropped into the backcountry and, with a bush plane. And, you're like, okay, this 12-year-old kid's with you. How's this going to go? And he loved it. I've never seen the kid more in his element in my life. And so that for me is kind of the focal point when I think about, he's got this big lofty goal for this doll sheep. And I'm like, I just got to keep nurturing that love, right? Like he's 16 years old. Like this to me, I feel like is a pretty pivotal moment where either we're going to keep him in it and keep him in the outdoors, or, the rest of his normal societal influences are going to pull him a different direction.
Right. Exactly. No, you 100% have to do that. That would be incredible. Well, I'll ask this as we wrap up, because you've talked about your organization, you've talked about your podcast, you've talked about all these events and everything that you have coming up this year for HOJ. If somebody's hearing this episode, they go and check you guys out, they're like, "Man, this is for me." How do they get involved? How do they get started? How does all that work?
Yeah. Love for you to reach out to us. Send a message. You can reach us on Instagram if you just want to connect and kind of dip your toe in the water. Her outdoor journey underscore. This is a new account. Instagram seems to hate me. So if I'm still there when you go to find me, that's where it will be. But you can always get information, get connected, get on our email list, and make sure that you're kind of subscribed over there on our website, which is heroutdoorjourney.com. Lots of different things for you to look at, some testimonials, some of our upcoming trips and experiences, and more importantly, our guides, the people that we work with, who are out there just really helping create these opportunities and bridge the gap for women in the outdoors.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, Courtney, thank you very much for joining me for an episode on our show and taking some time out of your day to chat with us. It's been awesome getting to hear your story, hear about what you guys are doing, and to talk hunting with you a little bit. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Sam.
Absolutely. Folks, be sure you guys go check out Her Outdoor Journey and Soul Summit Podcast on social media. Listen to the podcast on your podcast streaming apps and platforms, Carbon TV, all that good stuff. Be sure you're following Fall Obsession on all the same platforms. And I will be back with you guys again next week for another episode. We'll catch you then.